Kamen Rider Thouser is pretty indefensible because, well, his altered ego, Guy Amatsu, is a character who's very much written to be hated. He's conceited, he's insufferable, and he's actually the root of every other major character's problems. See, Guy hates these human-looking androids known as Humagear. Well, artificial sapient intelligence of any kind, really. So he teaches the communication satellite ARC human malice. ARC goes the way of many an evil AI, deciding that humans need to be exterminated and thus triggers the violent robot revolution. Amidst this paradigm, Guy brands himself as the Golden Soldier Thouser, savior of humanity. Destroy the Humagear, be lauded as a hero. The perfect plan. Except, one, Guy's not nearly as Machiavellian as he believes himself to be, and two, Guy sucks as a fighter. Thouser is one of the best rider systems in the 0-1 canon. Not only is it powered by 2 keys, where most riders use but one, it can also jack the data of any progress keys that its opponents are using, which permanently adds those power sets to Guy's arsenal. In theory, Thouser should snowball into an absolutely unstoppable rider. But at one point, Guy forces the metal cluster Hopper progress key onto fellow Kamen Rider 0-1. This is a bid to ruin 0-1's credibility, as he is a rider who champions the coexistence of humans and Humagear. The power-up sends the titular rider into a berserk, uncontrollable state, and it immediately goes wrong for Guy. It's beyond what Guy can handle, and once 0-1 gains control over the power-up, Guy can't even leverage it for his propaganda anymore. In the case of the Rampage Gatling progress key, this is supposed to be a consolidated version of all the data that Thouser's jacked. But it's noticeably missing any of the hallmarks of the 2 keys that Thouser uses for his base, and the Shine system that he stole from 0-1. Thus, Rampage Gatling is functionally a weaker version of Thouser, and it was originally meant for one of Guy's subordinates, which, fits Guy's ego. But instead, the power-up item ends up in the hands of Kamen Rider Vulcan, who absolutely bodies Guy with it. And of course, once the artificial intelligence of the malicious satellite ARC gains its own autonomy as Kamen Rider Arc Zero, Guy is too unable to contend with that, so he can't even clean up after his own mess. Guy starts out being carried by good gear, but by the third quarter of the series, most of the cast was handily outpacing him in skill and experience. Freaking base form Horobi was more of a problem than Guy was, and lore-wise, the Zetsumetsu Riser is among the earliest rider systems to boot. On the flip side, Thouser's status as the all-powers combined rider of the series makes him really handy as a jobber. They can throw him into an encounter where he just spams a litany of abilities to no avail, and it very quickly conveys to the audience that, none of those power sets will work on this opponent. So Guy had pretty organically already gone from the villain when you fight him to the villain when he's part of your roster by the time his redemption arc comes rolling around. Guy comes from a strict household, and his only emotional outlet is this robot dog, Thouser, portrayed excellently by the Sony Aibo ERS-111. Guy's emotionally abusive father blames the Thouser robot dog for Guy's shortcomings, leading to the young Guy cutting Thouser out of his life, which obviously curries favor with his father, so Guy internalizes robots as the reason for his faults, leading to him projecting all his failings on artificial sapient intelligence. In the present day, Guy has the wealth and influence to do something about that, but he's fundamentally a man-child, so he's gonna be a petty, weird billionaire about it. It also plays into how this crotchety man in his mid-40s has literally spent hundreds of thousands to make himself look half his age, because his upbringing robbed him of his youth, and he's been subconsciously seeking it this entire time. Reuniting with Thouser, this new model, played by the Sony Aibo ERS 1000, gives Guy that closure, and so he finally sides with the heroes. As Guy goes from antagonist to ally, the label by which he chose to remind himself of his shortcomings, Thouser, becomes that which continues to drive him forward. It's a solid, succinct little package that draws together a lot of Guy's more disparate elements, and even snowballs really neatly into the series' broader themes. Guy's the reason that Arc exists as it does, because he carried that tiny kernel of internalized disdain from the past into the present, and that's what prevents a more ideal future from coming into fruition. Several major characters in the series learn a version of this lesson as part of their character arcs, so Guy gets very neatly thematically folded into the rest of the cast. The problem is, Guy plagues the show as its antagonist for over half the series' run, and then his face turn is done over the course of but a single episode. And worse off, the backstory by which this hinges on is given to the audience in the last 10 minutes of said episode. It's just thrown in there. Guy's slotted into his new position amongst the group, and then the show moves on to its last stretch. A lot of the 01 series was being filmed in 2020, and so it lost 5 to 6 episodes when it abruptly had to stop production due to the COVID lockdown. It's very much felt here, and Guy's character arc is messily condensed down to a mere fraction of what it should have been. At the very least, Guy's frenetic face turn didn't automatically mean that he was supposed to be liked by the audience. Several characters in the show outright do not forgive him for the crap that he's pulled. And yeah, Guy does not start out as a good person. Given power and influence, he squanders them to indulge in his worst impulses. But by the end of the show, he is trying to do better. Being a monster and trying to do good in spite of such, that is quintessentially Kamen Rider.